Okay, great. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Why You Should Apply for a Neer Foundation Grant. My name is Nicole Tay, and I'm the Strategy and Communications Lead for the funding team at the Neer Foundation. I learned about decentralized tech in 2017, actually through like a public health lens. And since then, I left my job in pharma advertising to pursue my love of decentralization, and in particular to participate in this grand human experiment of if we can use decentralized tech to decentralize power. For this reason, I do a lot of education work, primarily aimed at like Zoomers on TikTok. I was drawn to the Neer Foundation because of, yes, a bunch of like really cool people that were very nice, but also like just how much decentralization is baked into the DNA of everything the NF is doing. So I think what really stands out to me about the Neer Foundation is our commitment to decentralization as a technology and a philosophy. It's really the cornerstone for the deep cultural investment that we've made in a multi-chain future, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and accessibility. Starting with a multi-chain future, we are here to help build an integrated and collaborative cross-chain world, one where blockchains can work together to build simple, scalable, and secure ways of onboarding the world to Web3. Aurora and Rainbow Bridge are two such projects, allowing users and devs to easily move assets between the Neer and Ethereum ecosystems. DE&I is a massive, important component to the NF and what we do on the funding team. As we're thinking about deploying $250 million into this global ecosystem and building this decentralized future, we know that we can't do this alone, nor should we. We want local leaders to decide what's best for their communities in adopting decentralized technology. That's why we want to diversify the communities this capital reaches, as well as the types of projects that we fund. An equitable, decentralized future does not happen without marginalized communities, and it does not happen without diversity and inclusion. Lastly, in terms of accessibility, we have a strong commitment to education as well as user experience and design. In the same vein as DE&I, if you're building for mainstream adoption in an effort to ultimately decentralize power, we need simple, accessible UX. All right, so drilling down from our values, let's take a look at our ecosystem. The takeaway here is that we have a lot of activity, and now we have a ton of funding to support it. Jumping into our core vision on the funding team specifically, these are the 4 focus areas that we're really aiming towards in terms of overall success of our platform. We want to support the creator triangle, provide easy access to existing resources in the ecosystem, obviously, support new projects and ideas through funding, and to really set up projects and partners to succeed with us by aligning on milestones for growth. As far as the broad funding platform, Grants comprises a part of the many funding opportunities at the Neer Foundation. Notably within Grants, the Proximity Lab program is focused on DeFi grants, and the Aurora program is focused on projects built on Aurora. So any applications that we receive at the Neer Foundation Grants program, we will reroute them appropriately to either Proximity or Aurora based on where your application is situated. Since launching mid last year, we have been so stoked by the growth of the Neer Foundation Grants program. To date, we have funded over 400 projects and awarded over $9 million in fiat and tokens. So you might be wondering, what types of projects should apply? And honestly, the limit is your imagination. These are some of the categories of projects that we've funded so far. Again, DeFi grants are being handled by Proximity Labs. I also wanted to call out our education grants. The Neer Foundation has had a bullish focus on education. There is an entire education team devoted to education grants for everyone from just like total newbies to teachers, designers, and of course, like seasoned devs. So let's take a closer look into some of the cool projects that that have already received grant funding. This is a video, but it's not playing. If I pull this up, will it be obnoxious? Oh, it is playing? Oh, jeez. Well, iNight is a new play-to-earn cognitive game that stimulates mental health and productivity. So in the game, you actually work with other players to come up with new ideas. And this is a sneak peek of their VR experience. Oh, geez. Arose Studios is an 8,000 member artist collective based in Lisbon. So this is like one of our like really out of the box thinking ideas where, again, it doesn't have to be just limited to like an application. The NF provided them with a physical studio space to support low-income artists. And the grant also included residencies where artists can become familiar with like NFTs and crypto and decentralization, all while creating and exhibiting their work. Also very excited about awesomeneer, which is a community managed project. It functions as sort of like your go-to project directory for all of the cool dApps being built on Near and using Aurora. This has been an amazing resource for new projects coming in to really understand what the ecosystem looks like and where to find potential partners. Next, we have cryptoheroes, which just launched and is a DAO-based play-to-earn crypto game. It's an RPG in which you have like a team of heroes, including like a knight, a mage, and an assassin. You basically battle evil bosses and minions to win loot and level up. And lastly, Unschool is an educational program that we funded out of India. As we know, there has been a widening digital divide as well as a dire need for talent in the Web3 space. Unschool helps to address a lot of these challenges. They have over 100,000 active users and students, and we're working with them currently to build out free blockchain courses. This means that Web2 devs can learn AssemblyScript and Rust to build dApps on Near. Courses for non-technical folks and entrepreneurs will teach them about decentralized apps so that by the time they want to start or join an existing Web3 project, they have all the fundamentals to jump right in. So let's say that you have decided to submit a grant. Amazing, yes. This is a look into what the process is like immediately after you submit, which does typically take about 6 weeks. There is an initial screen of your application to make sure everything is there. Moving on, there is a technical review. So we have folks on our team globally with just deep technical knowledge who will be checking out the technical details. Again, if your project is a technical one. They're essentially looking for any technical roadmaps, GitHubs, et cetera, and they're asking if the proposal makes sense technically, as well as if the team has any history of previous projects or deployments. If everything checks out, we move on to an interview just to level set all the applications before things get started. And lastly, a decision will be provided. Cool, so the previous slide kind of covers the first 3 steps of this broader grants process. We are 100% here to help throughout the application, and we really try to provide as much direction as we can. So like if you're missing any parts of your application, or if there are any remaining questions before we can just give you like that stamp of approval. You'll notice here that there is an onboarding process after acceptance. We have a dedicated ecosystem success team to help you reach your milestones. They are ready to help with things like finding new team members within the Near ecosystem, resolving technical hurdles, and of course providing any introductions to other projects. This is all in an effort to get you to launch. Okay, cool. So now we hit like the Wizard of Oz component where we sort of like get to peek behind the curtain. I kind of put these together as a way to think about like best practices, but also like some hacks for your application to make sure that it really stands out and that it can be really the best by the time you hit like that submit button. So these are the areas that tend to be the most frequent source of delays as well. And it's typically because someone on the funding team will have to follow up, typically outside of the interview step, to just get more clarity. Which is why I say, brevity is the soul of wit. We go through many applications, and the quicker we can understand your project idea, the faster we can get you going. We, of course, want you to provide important and ample details, but it may not necessarily be better for your application to be longer or more wordy. In this vein, you might consider asking, would my project summary make sense to an everyday crypto enthusiast? Milestones and timelines are also a really key component of the application. We would strongly prefer no more than 5 milestones, because more than that is just like a lot of stuff to keep up with. And it could very well be that your project only needs like 1 or 2. Like, for example, if your project spans like 2 months and you're receiving like 30K, maybe you only need like 2 milestones. The type of milestone will also be contingent upon what type of project you have and the stage that it's at. So, for example, a milestone for ADAPT might be launching, but a milestone for an education program might be like just developing the course. In that same vein, if your project is at a later stage and has launched already, your milestones may look a little bit less technical, so they might be related more to like user adoption. Conducting research is a totally valid ask for funding, especially if you don't have a clear idea of the technical components yet. It's actually awesome to see early stage projects building in that time for research, because it could very well be that by the time you're done conducting the research and you've created this technical roadmap, the budget and scope of what you intended to build ends up being like a lot larger than what you anticipated. And lastly, does your budget fit your project stage and proposed scope? So, let's be real. Big, lengthy projects can be really tough to scope. We're all still working with emerging technology, so the more we can take things like stepwise, the better we can set you up for success overall. So here are some helpful categories at the bottom to really think about like grant amounts. In the like less than 100K category, we have the ability to move pretty quickly on these projects. So as I said before, the whole grants process typically takes like 6 weeks. But if your like application is super buttoned up and you're like taking into consideration possibly some of these best practices and hacks, then we have seen applications go through in as little as 2 weeks. Moving on to the 100 to 250K range, this range requires more in-depth discussion and collaboration to really structure the proposal, which is why you see that we're taking at least 2 rounds of interviews as opposed to the 1. Compared to that 100K range, applicants in this bucket really shouldn't expect to kind of just like send in one application and just have that process be totally done. This is going to be a bit more involved than that. And lastly, at the 250K range, this is where we introduce a formal committee review with members of the NEAR Foundation community. You might need to pitch, for example, or collaborate with us to draft a memo. You can think about this in the same way as an angel investment in terms of the amount of involvement, obviously not equity driven, of course. Okay, to formally apply for a grant, please visit near.org/grants. You'll also find our full FAQ about the process, as well as information on our Refer and Earn program. So even if you don't have like a submission in mind yourself, maybe one of your friends has a really amazing idea or project. So you can earn up to 100K in NEAR tokens for successfully referring them to our program. And special to ETH Denver, we're offering some perks to projects that apply during the conference and the hackathon. This means that you can receive priority in connecting with our team about funding opportunities. So don't forget, like if you're actually in the application on our website, make sure that you list ETH Denver in your app as where you learned about this program. So lastly, come hit us up. The 3 of us, Josh, Corey, and I, are here in person representing our much larger funding team. Josh up here is our head of funding for all types of funding-related questions. Corey, our strategic fund manager, can answer questions about our VC network. And you can come and hit me up about grants. You may also email us directly for any specific questions that you have. I will also be at the NEAR booth today from 3 to 5 after this presentation. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for your time. Funding for your project is NEAR.